Welcome back to Module 9, and this module we're covering the operational control. Now, saying I reviewed it is not a procedure. So in this module, the human oversight protocol that makes an AI review evidenced is what we're going to cover. All right. Okay, cool. So the scenario. You're looking at Sophie Chen's recent file. She's a junior paralegal in the dispute resolution team at Halstead & Co. Now, she uses ChatGPT 4.0 for case chronologies. She would tell you she reviews every output before using it. And she's not lying. She does read it, but reading it is not a review standard. And a review with no standard procedure, no audit trail, is precisely the failure mode the courts have already addressed. Let's look at the gap that turns supervision into a feeling. Now, ISO IEC 42001-2023 clause 9.1 requires the firm to retain appropriate documented information as evidence of the results of monitoring and measurement. The SRA's Principle 5 requires proper supervision. Now, the courts has made it clear, most recently in the Hyundai 2025 court case that I've been showing you throughout the modules. Now, that reading AI output is not the same as supervising it. A review with no standard, no checklist, no record, and no escalation path produces no audit trail and no defense. So this gap 8 is rated high because the failure mode is invisible to the firm until a regulator, a court, or a client asks the question that demands the evidence. Okay, so that's the scenario. So what happens when review leaves no trace? Okay, so a human oversight procedure is not an administrative oversight. It is a procedural blind spot. And the consequences fall on three parties simultaneously. It falls on the fee earners who cannot evidence their work. It falls on the COLP who cannot evidence supervision, and the firm that cannot answer Pemberton's question number 5 with anything more substantial than a hopeful promise. Let's look at the 4 things that can happen when you don't have a review procedure in place. So once again, you have this court case here that took place back last year in June 2025. 18 fabricated case citations were submitted in a judicial review claim. The submissions were presumably read before filing. The problem was not an absence of eyes on the document. It was the absence of a structure review that would have caught hallucinated citations. A verify every citation against the primary source checklist would have caught the failure. An unstructured read-through did not. Now, Halstead & Co.'s ChatGPT 4 usage sits in the same failure pattern unless a structured checklist is in place. Then you have the SRA's supervision findings. Now, for the SRA's Principle 5, it requires proper supervision of legal work. The SRA's February 2026 AI guidance makes clear that this obligation extends to AI-generated content. Now, supervision has a specific meaning. It is a process, a defined standard of review applied consistently, with evidence that occurred. An undocumented review that leaves no trace in the matter file is not supervision under the SRA's principles. It is supervision in name only, and a future SRA thematic review will be able to demonstrate the gap with a single document request. Then you have the repeating failure patterns. So when a fee earner finds an AI error, a wrong citation or a transposed date, and corrects it without recording the error, the same error type occurs in the next output and one after that. Now, the risk register, which is the AI management system risk documentation, is not updated because the pattern is invisible. The same prompt configuration that produced the error continues to be used. The residual risk score for the irrelevant factor becomes progressively less accurate over time. the firm's governance loses integrity in slow motion. Now, Halstead and Co.'s top client, which is Pemberton Capitals, they have their last question, which is question 5, unanswered. Now, that question asks, what oversight do you apply to AI generated work product? Now, the honest answer today is fee earners read the output. A response of we apply professional supervision to AI generated content is not an answer either. It is a description of intent. However, a documented 3-tier review standard, a tier 1 checklist, a sign-off form, and an incident escalation pathway, the firm cannot point to a process. So Pemberton Capital, that values £620,000 of revenue to Halstead and Co., that client relationship is exposed. Now let's quickly take a look at what the ITIL perspective is. Now in ITIL 4's terms, Gap 8 represents a failure in the monitoring and event management practice, and specifically the absence of a detection and resolution record. ITIL requires that monitoring produce actionable records, events classifications, incident logs, problem investigated, resolution documented. A fee earner noticing an AI error and fixing it without recording the finding is an ITIL equivalent of a service desk detecting an incident and resolving it without opening a ticket. The operational data needed to prevent reoccurrence never accumulates. And that's the ITIL 4 perspective. Okay, so now let's look at what the standard actually requires. IEC 42001 2023 clause 9.1 is short in its written text but demanding. So per ISO IEC Directive Part 2, the word shall denotes a requirement, should denotes a recommendation, and may denotes a permission. So let's look at the table below. All right. So you got the 3-tier oversight model. You got tier 1, every AI output reviewed against the 10-point tier 1 checklist before use in any client matter. Matter file sign off required per output. No AI generated content reaches a client without a named fee earner's documented approval. Okay, so that's tier 1, high risk. Then you got tier 2, which is medium risk. And that is supervising solicitor reviews 1 in every 5 AI assisted outputs per fee earner per month. Spot checks recorded on the tier 2 log. A pattern of errors triggers tier 1 escalation for the fee earner's use of the system. So the supervisor or the supervising solicitor needs to make sure that they're having spot checks, and any errors, anything that's spotted within that spot check automatically triggers tier 1 as a high risk. Okay. Next you have tier 3, which is low risk. So you've got the AI governance lead or the IT lead. They will conduct a quarterly sample audit of AI outputs from low risk systems. No per output sign off required. Audit findings reported in the AI management system quarterly performance review. All right, so that's the 3 tiers. Tier 1, every output structured checklist matter file recorded. Tier 2, 1 in 5 outputs is reviewed, supervising partner sample review. And then tier 3, quarterly audit sample and AI management system performance reports. Okay, so let's look at the obligations for clause 9.1. Okay, so let's start with may. So the organization may apply different review standards to different outputs of the same system. For example, applying tier 1 to outputs used in pleadings and tier 2 to outputs used in internal memos. Risk proportionate review is also allowed. Now, what firms should do, and remember, should is the recommendations, okay? So it is recommended that the organization should define the review standard by reference to the specific failure modes of each AI system. So that is citation hallucination, date transposition, scope drift, and confident statement of the law. Generic review standards fail to catch these system-specific errors. Okay. Next, it is recommended that an organization should maintain aggregated performance data at practice area and firm-wide level. This will enable pattern detection across fee earners and overtime. Individual reviews are necessary. Aggregated analysis is what makes them useful. Okay, so that's the recommendations. Now let's look at the requirements. So, the organization shall determine what needs to be monitored and measured. So for law firms' AI systems, this means the specific output quality dimensions relevant to each system. So that's citations, date, scope, legal propositions, not generic output quality. It has to be specific. Then organizations shall determine the methods of monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation to ensure valid results. Valid results require a structured checklist collaborated to the system's known failure modes, not a generic read-through. Next, the organization shall determine when monitoring and measuring shall be performed. For Tier 1 systems, the answer is every output before use. The cadence is not discretionary. It is built into the procedure. Next, the organization shall determine when results shall be analyzed and evaluated. This means a defined cycle. So the COLP's quarterly performance report for the aggregated view plus per incident analysis for material errors. Next, the organization shall determine who shall analyze and evaluate these results. So you have the AI governance lead and the COLP are named in the RACI, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed matrix. The procedure identifies them again here for the oversight specific role. Next, the organization shall evaluate the performance and effectiveness of AI management system. Performance equals are the systems delivering the intended benefit. Effectiveness equals is the governance framework operating as designed. Both require data. Next, you have the organization shall retain appropriate documented information as evidence of the results. This is the operative phase that turns I read it into I can evidence that I read it. Every review leaves a trace. Then finally, you've got Annex 6, which is about the human oversight of AI systems. Now, the organization shall ensure that AI systems are used under appropriate human oversight proportionate to their impact. The 3-tier model implements this proportionate oversight. So those are the 11 obligations under clause 9.1. Okay, so let's look at the regulator's view. So how the SRA supervision standard maps to clause 9.1. Okay, so the SRA's existing supervision framework, which is never written specifically with AI in mind, but already creates the same requirement when applied to AI generated work. You have 3 instruments operating together. The mapping below, which we're going to look at now, is where the human in the loop document actually comes together. Okay, so first you have the SRA AI guidance. The SRA's framing, the same standard of supervision as work produced by any other means, makes 2 things clear. First, AI output is work product, and work product requires supervision. Second, the standard cannot be relaxed because the producer is an AI system. So for Halstead & Co., the Tier 1 review checklist implements this same standard obligation in operational terms, with the additional point that AI systems have specific documented failure modes that the checklist is collaborated to detect. Now notice I've put this to close together, but never mind. We will work through it. Next, you have the SRA's competence. So the SRA Code of Conduct for Solicitors 2019, Rule 3.2 and 3.3. Now, Rule 3.2 requires solicitors to maintain the level of competence and legal knowledge needed to practice effectively. Rule 3.3 requires supervision of staff and adequate training. The SRA has confirmed both obligations extend to tool use in practice, including understanding what their limitations are. Now, a solicitor who reviews AI output without understanding the LLM's hallucination citations is not exercising the competence of Rule 3.2. Then you have the COLP's duty. Now, again, this is the SRA Code of Conduct for Firms 2019, but this is Rule 8.1, Section A. So the COLP must take all responsible steps to ensure that the firm, its employees and interest holders comply with their obligations under the SRA's regulatory arrangements. Now, without a documented oversight procedure, the COLP cannot evidence that reasonable steps have been taken to govern AI use. The Tier 1 sign-off records and the quarterly performance report are the evidence base for Rule 8.1, Section A compliance. Then, finally, you have court precedents. Now, again, in light of this court case here, with Hyundai and the London Borough of Tower of Hamlets, you've got the 18 fabricated case citations, which was submitted in a judicial review claim. The court drew explicit attention to the responsibility of the legal representatives, which was 2 solicitors, to verify AI-generated material before relying on it. The judgment is now routinely cited as the operational baseline for AI output review in legal practices. A Tier 1 checklist that mandates verification for every citation against the primary source is precisely the standard the courts expect. So, the ISO 42001 Clause 9.1, the SRA's February 2026 AI guidance, the SRA's Rules 3.2, 3.3, and 8.1, Section A. Also, the Hyundai judgment all converge on the same requirement: a documented, evidence-producing human oversight procedure for AI-generated work product. So the AI management system human in the loop document that we're going to build is the single procedure that satisfies the international standard, evidences compliance with the SRA's supervisory duty, meets the standard the court expected in the Hyundai case, and answers Pemberton Capital's 5th questionnaire question with a structured process rather than a hopeful promise. So let's look at the fix. So the 3 tiers that will put together the AI management system human in the loop document. All right. So the oversight requirement is not uniform across all AI systems. A risk proportionate model derived from the risk register scores in the AI management system's risk document and applies different review standards to high, medium, and low risk systems. All right. So let's take a look at that down here. So you've got Tier 1, 100% review, the Tier 1 standard for high risk systems. All right, let's look at this standard. So Tier 1 is the most demanding review standard and applies to every AI system classified as high risk in the AI management system risk document. At Halstead & Co., this currently includes ChatGPT and also Copilot in Outlook once it returns to active status. Okay, so what the review looks like in practice. So every output is reviewed against the 10-point Tier 1 checklist before the output is used in any client matter. Then the reviewer is a qualified solicitor or a supervised trainee acting under a qualified solicitor's oath with sufficient expertise in the relevant area of law to assess the output's accuracy. Then you have the human in the loop sign-off form is also completed per output. This form captures the system used, the matter reference, a name and date. Each of the 10 checklist items confirmed are flagged, any errors detected, overall sign-off or non-sign-off decision. So this is all on the human in the loop sign-off form. Then you have the completed form is then filed in the matter file. This is either as a separate document or as an entry in the matter management system. The form is evidence that the review occurred, what is checked or what it checked, and what it found. Then you have the material or serious errors trigger, the incident escalation pathway, which we'll look at in the next section. Now, this is done within 2 working days of the detection. Now, why can't Tier 1 be delegated downwards? The review must be conducted by a qualified solicitor or a supervised trainee under the qualified oversight, because the assessment involves judgment calls about the accuracy of the legal propositions, the sufficiency of the verification, and the materiality of any errors detected. A paralegal checking citations against a checklist is operating at the verification layer. The judgment layer requires qualified supervision. This is the SRA's Principle 5 applied to AI output. So that's Tier 1. So Tier 2, supervised spot checks, the Tier 2 standard for medium risk systems. Okay, so Tier 2 is a lighter review standard that applies to AI systems classified as medium risk in the AI management system risk documentation. Now at Halstead & Co., this currently includes the ChatGPT in Word and Leap AI. The Tier 2 model acknowledges that reviewing every output is disproportionate for lower risk tools, but rejects the alternative of no review at all. All right, so what the review looks like in practice. So you have the fee earner uses the AI output in the ordinary course of work. Tier 2 does not require per output sign-off. The level of scrutiny is reserved for Tier 1 systems where the error cost is highest. The supervising solicitor reviews 1 in every 5 AI-assisted outputs per fee earner per month. The sample is selected at random, not self-selected by the fee earner. And this is to preserve the integrity of the oversight. Then the Tier 2 spot check log captures the output reviewed, the date of review, the supervising solicitor's name, any errors or concerns identified, the F1 to F4 classification if applicable, of course, and the action taken. So no action, correction, or escalation. Then you have a pattern of errors triggers Tier 1 escalation for that fee earner's use of the AI system. So specifically, 3 or more spot checks in a quarter with identified errors. The AI governance lead reassigns the fee earner's use of the AI system to Tier 1 for the next quarter. Now, why 1 in 5 is the working standard? Okay, the cadence is collaborated to 2 competing requirements. Enough sample size to detect patterns, but light enough to be operable in a busy practice. Now, the ISO 42001 auditors typically accept 20% sample rates for medium risk oversight as proportionate. Smaller samples make pattern detection unreliable. Larger samples make the procedure unworkable. So this is why the 1 in 5 figure is the working consensus. So that's Tier 2. Now in Tier 3, the periodic audit, the Tier 3 standard for low risk systems. So Tier 3 is the lightest oversight standard and applies to AI systems classified as low risk in the AI management system risk documentation. At Halstead & Co., this is currently covering the administrative AI tools, so billing narratives, drafting, scheduling assistance, non-client facing AI features like grammar suggestions, spell checkers, etc., and similar utility functions where the consequences of an error is contained. What the review looks like in practice. So there's no per output sign off is required. Tier 3 systems are used in the ordinary course of work without a per output review record. The AI governance lead or IT lead conducts a quarterly sample audit. So that's just a random sample of 5 to 10 AI outputs for each tier 3 system is reviewed against a brief tier 3 audit checklist. Then you have audit findings are reported in the AI management system quarterly performance report. This report goes to the COLP and the AI governance lead and the senior leadership, with findings includes number of outputs sampled, number of errors found, any patterns detected, and any recommendations for tier classification. Then you have the pattern of error triggers tier 3 reclassifications. So if a tier 3 audit findings show error rates that are disproportionate to the risk tier, the AI governance lead recommends moving the system to tier 2 for the next quarter, with the prospect of returning to tier 3 if performance improves. Now, why do we even need low risk systems to have some form of oversight? The tier 3 standard is not no oversight. It is oversight proportionate to the risk. So the administrative AI tools can still produce errors that affect client invoices, internal records, or scheduling, and the absence of any oversight means these errors accumulate silently. The quarterly audit is the minimum viable mechanism to keep tier 3 systems in check. All right, lovely. All right, let's look at part 2 of the fix. So the tier 1 checklist and the incident escalation pathway. So tier 1 review checklist is the operational core of the oversight procedure, the structured instrument that turns an unstructured read through into a documented evidenced review. The checklist below is collaborated to the 4 specific failure modes, so that's from F1 to F4, that AI systems produce in legal context. Every checkbox matters. Every gap leaves a known failure pattern undetected. Okay, so let's quickly look at the 4 failure patterns that the checklist must catch. So you have F1, which is the citation hallucination, and that's one of the key things in this court case. F2, which is the date and figure, so that's dates, party names, any kind of financial information and so on. You've got F3, the scope drift. So output extends beyond the requested task, unsolicited analysis, content from outside the submitted documents. Okay, so scope drift, that's F3. And then F4, you've got confident misstatement of law. So incorrect legal propositions stated in authoritative fluid language, passes casual read, fails specialized review. So confident misstatement of law, and that's F4. Okay, so let's look at this example of a tier 1 review checklist. And this is for the AI management system, the ChatGPT 4.0. We have 10 items in the checklist that all AI systems that's in tier 1 has to go through. So let's go through them quickly, one by one. So the first one, every case citation in the output has been verified against the primary source. And the examples I've got here is Westlaw UK, Lexis Plus, or official law reports. Question 2, or checklist 2 rather, every date, deadline, and time period in the cross-checked against the source documents provided to the AI. 3, every party name, company name, and identity reference has been confirmed correctly. 4, every financial figure, sum, or statutory threshold has been verified against the source document or current statutory authority. Checklist 5, the scope of the AI system matches the scope of the instruction. Content that goes beyond this requested task has been identified and either removed or separately verified for inclusions. Checklist 6. Any legal proposition stated as facts by the AI has been independently verified against case law, statutory, or authoritative commentary. Checklist 7. The data minimizations rule for this system were followed when preparing the input. No prohibited data categories were submitted, and any special category data was authorized in advance. Checklist 8. The output has been reviewed by a qualified solicitor or a solicitor trainee acting under a qualified solicitor's oversight with significant expertise in the relevant area of law to assist its accuracy. Checklist 9. Any errors detected during the review has been corrected in the output, classified using the F1 to F4 scheme that we just looked at above, and recorded in the human in the loop sign-off form. Material or serious errors have been escalated per the incident pathway within 2 working days. And then checklist 10, the reviewer is satisfied that the output amended accurately reflects the law and facts of the matter and is fit for the purpose for which it will be used. The reviewer signs the human in the loop sign-off form with their name, signature, and date. Now that is the 10 checklist, tier 1 checklist, review checklist that each tier 1 AI system has to go through and pass. So let's look at the incident escalation pathway. So when tier 1 checklist detects a material error, the finding does not simply get corrected and forgotten. The escalation pathway routes the finding through the governance framework, preserving the operational signal that the risk register and lifecycle procedure depends on. So let's look at that. Let's look at these 5 steps. So step 1, fee earner corrects the error and completes the human in the loop sign-off form, marking the error according to its type, whether that's F1, F2, F3, or F4, and its severity, so whether it's minor, material, or serious. Minor errors are recorded in the form only. Step 2, material or serious errors are reported to the supervising solicitor and the COLP within 2 working days of the detection. The report includes the F classification and the severity assessment, as well as the proposed correction. Step 3, the COLP assesses whether the error constitutes as an AI incident under the policy AI management system document. Also, whether the client notification is required. Again, that is under the AI management system disclosure documentation and the SRA's transparency obligations. Also, whether error triggers the tier 2 incident in the AI management system lifecycle document. Now, step 4, the AI governance lead updates the AI management system risk documentation. The relevant risk factor row is reassessed. If the incident reveals that the residual risk score for that factor is understated, the score is revised and the risk acceptance recorded updated. Then finally, step 5, pattern detection. If the same error type reoccurs across multiple matters or multiple fee earners, the COLP flags this in the quarterly performance report. 3 or more incidents of the same error type within a quarter triggers a mandatory review of the prompt version, as per the AI management system documentation and the tier 1 checklist. So that is the 5-step incident escalation pathway. Now, why are minor errors still recorded? The distinction between minor material and serious errors determine the escalation path. It does not determine whether the error is recorded. So every error detection during a tier 1 review is recorded in the human in the loop sign-off form, regardless of the severity. Minor errors that occur become material patterns, The pattern is only visible if the individual instances are recorded. A firm that only records serious errors will systematically miss the early warning signs that produces those severe and serious errors. All right, nice. So let's look at the actual documentation control. So a human oversight procedure without document control is just like a memo. Now, the ISO 2001 clause 7.5 requires that all AI management system documentation carry a defined set of metadata, which is the ID, version, owner, classification, issue date, review cycle, retention, and related documents. And the block below is an example of Halstead and Co.'s control block for their document that we are producing in this module. So as you can see, it's got the ID, the title of the document, the standards that it's referring to, and its classification, next review, other related documentation, its status, and so on. We've also got the owner and the date with its signature. Where's the signature? Oh, signature will be at the bottom. So yes, you've got the date of the signature and its retention period, which is in line with the companies at the 06. Okay, so what happens when a AI management system human in a loop document is issued? Okay, so from day zero, from the days actually issued, the status changes from draft to active. The date of the issue is recorded. The 7-year retention clock starts. From this date forward, every tier 1 system must be reviewed against the 10-point checklist and a sign-off form completed before use in any client matter. Now, within 7 days, the COLP, supported by the AI governance lead, briefs every fee earner who uses ChatGPT in this example or any other tier 1 AI system on the 10-point checklist. The briefing covers what each item checks, why it matters, and how to complete the sign-off form. Each fee earner signs an acknowledgement form, and then the briefings are recorded in the AI management system training logs. Now, within 2 weeks, so 14 days, the first tier 1 review of ChatGPT and its output produces the first completed human in the loop sign-off form. So the form is then filed in the matter file. From this point forward, every matter using the tier 1 AI output has documentary evidence of the review, meeting the SRA's supervision standard, as well as the clause 9.1's documentation requirement. Now, within 30 days, which is just so happens to be the deadline for completing Pemberton's questionnaire, Halstead & Co. responds to Pemberton Capital's 5th questionnaire question with a copy of their AI management system human in a loop document attached, the tier classification for each system, the date of the first completed sign-off form, and a sample anonymized form showing the review standard. All 5 questionnaire questions are now answered with documented procedures. And then 90 days, the COLP produces the first quarterly AI management system performance report covering tier 1 reviews. And again, this is number, error rate, the F1 to F4 distribution. Now, tier 2 spot checks, tier 3 audit findings, and any pattern signals detected. So this is all put into the AI management system performance report. Now, the report establishes the baseline against which future quarterly performance is measured. Pattern detection, the strategic value of the procedure becomes operational. All right. So the AI management system human in a loop document is what now closes gap 8. So it closes the operational oversight loop. With this procedure in place, the firm can evidence that every high-risk AI output is reviewed against a structured standard, that errors are recorded and escalated, and that aggregated performance data informs governance decisions. One gap remains in the AI management system, which is gap 9, and that is the supply chain governance, and that is what we're going to be covering in our next module, which is module 10. Now, like always, I've provided you with some, how many have I given you? 3 in this one. 3 quiz questions. Again, I'm not going to click on anything here because it will just show the answers in the video, and that's not exactly fair. And I've also given you your module 9 checklist that you could tick off as you're working at your own pace, understanding the scenario, understanding the standards, understanding the 3 tiers, and the program readiness. All right. I've also provided you with a template of the human in the loop oversight procedure. So we've got our different sections here. Section 1, so this is a tier 3 oversight model, which we've already covered. So you've got the breakdown of the tier 1, the obligations, the details, and then you've got your areas here in terms of where you put your fee earners and those responsible for performing these obligations. Then you've also got tier 2, same thing. You've got the obligations and who is it performed by. Oh, not forgetting the actual cadence for each one. So for example, supervisor spot check, they're doing a 1 in 5 outputs and they're doing that monthly. So you've got the cadence there as well. And then you've got the low risk systems, which is tier 3. You've got the section for the tier 1 review checklist for each AI system. So I got here all the checklist itself, and I've broken them down into sections. So you got the accuracy test, or checks rather. You got the scope and data checks, and then you've got the sign off. Section 3 is all about the human in the loop sign off form example. So you got the matter reference, which AI system was used, given a description of what was the output, data was used, the date of the review, who reviewed it and what was their role, and so on. You've got the 1 in 5 AI assisted spot check log. So just an example of the form here. And then you've got the different AI systems. Section 5 is the error classification and severity guide. So you've got the error types. Remember we spoke about the F1 to F4. So you've got the different severity types with the definition, examples, and the typical severity. And then we've got the different classifications here, what the actual definition and response will be for the different severities from minor, material, and serious. You got the AI output incident log. So again, just a template of the log. You'll have the date, the AI system. You got which error type based on the F1 to F4, which severity based on those classifications. You give your description, actions taken, and obviously it has to be signed off by the COLP who's reviewing the actual log. Then you have the quarterly AI management system performance report. So, and this report, by the way, is what gets presented to the AI governance lead as well as the managing partners for the firm. So all it just consists of is what are the AI systems, its outputs, what errors were detected, the results from the spot checks, and AI completion, any pattern escalations for the quarter, and obviously signed off by the CLP and the AI governance lead as acknowledgement. And then finally, of course, you've got your version history log. So this is your complete template, and the word template is the key term here. This is not an official legal document by any means. This is produced to give you an idea of what the different documentation would actually look like, the different sections. You would take the relevant information that suits your firm and put together your own human in the loop documentation. This is here for your guidance and understanding of what's needed. Okay, so that is the completion of module 9. And next we're going to be talking about the final module, which is module 10. Module 10, we're going to be talking about the supply chain governance. So we're going to be addressing the third party and self-hosted AI procurement, where additional oversight obligations apply. So the firms that procure AI capabilities through multiple vendors, aggregators, or self-hosted deployments will need a AI management system supply documentation, the supplier assessment regime, to close the final gap. Exciting stuff. So I will see you in module 10.